Nowadays, I don't think box arts for video games really matter that much. In the era of video content, stuff like art style, trailers and gameplay are much more important than what art was picked to cover the box. Maybe for games aimed at families like Mario or Kirby it still matters, but for something like Fire Emblem I don't think it's all that important. But that wasn't always the case. During the days of Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light, box art surely still mattered as a way to draw your eye when stacked on store shelves, as well as bring the vision of the game to life, seeing as the game itself was graphically not capable of doing so. I mean, think about it. A large part of why Fire Emblem is considered an anime-style game is because the box arts of the original titles convey it as such, pertaining to anime tropes of the time. It's not like the games aren't anime-styled, this isn't something completely different like Mega Man, but all it really amounts to in-game are the portraits. It's the box art that brings to life that this is what your mind is supposed to picture while playing. And so, while I don't think Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light's old school anime style is the pinnacle of the series exactly, I mean it makes every character look like a child and Medei is like some sort of Bigfoot, but I do think it's good box art. It's colorful, yet cool and mysterious, and makes it very clear this is a story with a whole bunch of characters, which was definitely something that set Fire Emblem apart. So let's consider this the baseline. This is a neutrally good piece of box art. But definitely not all artworks we've seen over the decades can be considered middle of the road. For example, literally the next game over, Gaiden. This is probably the least seen box art of the entire series I would imagine, and those of you who have never seen it truly haven't missed much. Compared to Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light, Gaiden's cover art is much darker and gloomier, which I don't think is necessarily a good reflection of the game. Furthermore, the characters don't really look that cool, more so goofy, and why the hell is Volbar here? Like, I can understand just focusing on Alma Celica rather than multiple characters like the original did, but why of all people did Volbar make the cut? Was he considered the coolest design? Is it so Elm isn't the only one flexing his groin armor? We will probably never know. And then we have the shadowy figure watching over the heroic trio now, I guess. Purely based on context and the story of the game, I think it is supposed to be Duma, but the fact we to this day do not really officially know who this is says enough about how badly depicted this character is. I mean, the Fire Emblem TCG, Cypher, made a piece of artwork honoring the cover with modern designs, and even they depicted this evil character as a sort of random knight, not Duma or Rudolph, who I suppose it could also be. So even looking past the primitive anime style that hasn't exactly aged the best and looks more like a dusty children's book than anything else, I would still say Gaiden's cover art is among the weakest the series has seen. It's not like I can name many other video games that depict a minor side character like he's important and contain a huge face whose owner we still don't know the identity of more than 30 years later. And mind you, this was during the days box art actually mattered. Because like I said, nowadays it's not super important anymore. Which probably explains why the best-selling Fire Emblem game, the best-selling game in this entire genre, has a box art that really isn't all that. It's hard to look at the art of Free Houses with fresh eyes. I don't know about you, but I've seen this so much in the last few years, it's hard to see it as a piece of art rather than just a thing that has always been there, if you get what I mean. But I don't think it can be overlooked. While I do like the composition, both in terms of colors and the quadrant motif, plenty of details look off if you analyze it further. First off, Edelgard's face is very weird. Now, there has always been a bit of a dissonance between her various depictions, so in that way it's nothing new. Her official artwork has quite a different face from her in-game look, her hero's art occasionally has something different going on as well, and then I haven't even mentioned what the hell Engage was doing. So in that light, it's not too surprising, but still, if you'd want any of those to accurately reflect the game, surely the box art is high up there. Dimitri is really the only character that got off clean here, I think, because, yeah, Cloud, my man, what are you doing? You know your character placement is shaky when people find it so weird it turns into a meme. From an artistic standpoint though, I think the real problem isn't that he's upside down. That can be considered tongue-in-cheek and to show off, which isn't necessarily something that doesn't fit Cloud. The real problem is that he isn't actually upside down. His lone strand of hair is going the wrong way, his cape is going the wrong way, for all intents and purposes he's standing straight up and defying gravity. The image has just been flipped. And once you notice that, it's over, then it's not cool anymore, then it's just weird. And then at the bottom we have the two Byleths, just standing there. When the cover was first revealed, this received a lot of criticism, as it made them look boring and unimportant. But having now played the game, yeah, no, this is pretty fitting of who they are, let's be honest. I do think they are a little small though, it leaves quite some empty space, which is something not many Fire Emblem cover arts actually keep. At least it's not as bad as Fire Emblem Warriors for Switch though, because hoo boy, this cover art has enough empty space going on to put its character and logo on there twice. So what do you get when you combine these two space-wasting artworks? Well, one of the best in the series as it turns out. In my opinion, the box art of Free Hopes is one of the best the series has ever seen. There is a ton going on, barely any space wasted, everything is super dynamic, the colors are nice and popping, yet also darker to fit Chess's arc. Hell, even Edelgard looks like herself this time, and Byleth actually does something, befitting to their portrayal in this game. I guess you could say Sylvis and Arval look a bit too much like they're about to make out rather than rivals, but that's nitpicking. Great job this one, I really like it. Let's keep the positivity up with a favorite from the early Japanese exclusive titles. Genealogy of the Holy Wars box art may not look like it came out yesterday, but compared to the 3 prior games it has aged a whole lot better, even if Selev's face is a little shaky. I do find it interesting though that Selev is front and center for this piece, whereas Sigurd is relegated to the background when in game you first play as Sigurd for like half of it before Selev even shows up of course. It also makes very good use of the vertical layout of SNES boxes at the time, which is obviously what we have today as well, but following Genealogy's release, Japanese box arts for the Fire Emblem games would be horizontal for a pretty long time, all the way up until Path of Radiance. Now let's just say they didn't always know how to use that space over there in Japan. Take a look at Sacred Stones for example. Because all the official artwork for the game is still vertical, a new composition was made for the Japanese box art that shows Evrim and Erika in front of the world map, colored grey so it doesn't stand out too much. This results in a pretty boring and unexciting piece, which is a real shame when you consider the official artwork for Sacred Stones is absolutely beautiful. At least here in the West we did get some of that oil painting look, although here, due to the square box art of the GBA, the logo of the game completely covered Leon, who looms over the 2 lords in the actual piece. What makes Japan messing this up even weirder though is that they absolutely nailed it for the Binding Blade. Well, I do think the character art for this game isn't the best, which is obviously also depicted on the box. I do love the use of the space here. You've got Roy and Lelina prominently on one side, and then the cloud-rich background with plenty of units scattered about, and then Idan and Zephiel looming over like Leon was never allowed to. It's really nice. And it's almost guaranteed that had this game come to the West, the entire left side would probably be cut off from the back, so it's good we at least have the horizontal Japanese ones to talk about. We can't stop talking about regional differences without looking at Awakening though, because while the actual art piece used in its box art is super clean and super nice, although maybe a tad generic, due to the way the cover differs per region, there really isn't one definitive, perfect version if you ask me. Japanese is probably the worst. The way the black bar containing the game's name is tacked on feels kinda cheap to me, and it draws a lot of attention to something that doesn't really deserve it. The American box art blends this black box better into its design. It looks sleeker, but I still think it's worse than how the European cover does the logo, which is, well, by using the actual logo rather than a big black box. The only problem is, in order to make room for the logo, they messed up the composition and created a whole lot of empty space, which I'm not a fan of. So yeah, all 3 versions of Awakening have their own unique flaws, and yet all 3 of them look nice in their own ways. Alright, let's move on to the absolute pinnacle of each side of the coin. The best and worst box arts in Fire Emblem. I think best is a pretty difficult question, because many of the ones I haven't yet talked about in this video are really good. Path of Radiance is great and Gage has a super nice color composition, and while it's that simple, I love the 2 Fates covers as well. But my favorite has to be Shadows of Olympia, which probably has partly to do with how the general art style of this game is just absolute peak, something that's also clearly reflected in the box art. But really everything about this piece just works and feels right. Alm and Celica back to back to reflect they're together yet apart. Alm has his sword drawn, ready to fight, while Celica is praying. You've got the Regalian soldiers surrounding them, giving a sense of threat, which they obviously are for a good part of the game, yet it also looks like a guard of honor, reflecting how Alm eventually rules over these soldiers. This cover does everything right, I have 0 notes whatsoever. Except maybe, where is Volbar? I've been told he's a major character in this game. And last and least, we have the worst box art Fire Emblem has ever seen. Yes, my friends, it gets worse than Gaiden and its non-existent characters. Because at least Gaiden had characters. The box art for Shadow Dragon DS is just a map, a logo and falchion. Not only is it one-colored, and that color is the most dusty shade of brown in existence, literally nothing about this cover tells you what game you're about to play, except for the logo obviously. Remove that and this could be a Dragon Quest game. It could be Golden Sun, it could be Final Fantasy, it could literally be every fantasy medieval game ever. You know how many of those exist? I get that the idea was to make it look historic, like you're opening the cover of an ancient book of legends, but this was not the way to do it. Maybe they could have recreated the original Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light artwork, except with that style in mind. Either way, there are much better ways to try to hit that vibe without making your cover art look this boring. The remake of Mystery of the Emblem was a slight improvement at least, although this one also suffers from black box syndrome even more than Awakening did. But it's nothing compared to the dullness that a Shadow Dragon DS's cover. What are your favorite and least favorite Fire Emblem box arts? Share it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing. And if you really want to support me, you can now become a channel member to get all kinds of fun perks and help me keep bringing these videos to your doorstep every week. For now, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.